one of the stories we're going to be talking to Rob Merrick about is on the front page of the Telegraph. The winter fuel payment cut will save less money than Rachel Reeves actually needs. Let's find out what that's all about. Rob, a very good morning to you.
Good morning.
So, the one big sort of plank of their initial policy before, thinking back all the way through to the beginning of last week, before the riots actually happened, Rachel Reeves was the big story, wasn't it? Because she had decided to take away the winter fuel payment from pensioners, which was seen as a very cruel move. But according to a former pensions minister, Steve Webb, who served as Lib Dem pensions minister during the coalition years, they actually won't end up saving as much money as they thought, because an awful lot of pensioners will now say, actually, we're going to apply for pension credit.
Yes, under the government's proposals, pensioners will continue to receive the winter fuel allowance if they're judged to be in need of it, if they're judged to be poor enough, and the test of that is whether they receive pension credit. And at the moment, huge number of pensioners do not apply for it. So yes, I think it will be a natural consequence that if the fuel allowance is taken away, more people will apply for pension credit, and perhaps it will end up costing the government a bit more than it expects. And I think, take it a step back, though, I mean, the big picture is still that clearly taking away the winter fuel allowance from most pensioners will save money. I mean, quite clearly it will. People can argue whether that's the right or wrong thing to do, but I think it's interesting that this government is willing to take on pensioners, if you like. It's willing to inflict some pain on pensioners, take the political risk of that, because those pensioners are overwhelmingly not their voters, and that's the stark contrast with the Conservatives, of course.
Well, it is, but it also leads you to believe, because we all agreed at the time when they did it, if the Conservatives had done it, they'd have been accused of all sorts of cruelty, and you'd have had all kinds of, cartoons being drawn in The Guardian about, taking away from the poor and giving to the rich, because they're actually effectively taking this money, about 1.1 billion they say they're going to get, and giving it all to junior doctors.
Well, they're not taking any money away from the poor, are they? Clearly, if you're a poor pensioner, you will continue to receive the winter fuel allowance, provided you apply for pension credit. The money is being taken away from wealthy pensioners. Lots of people.
Well, not really. I mean, there's not that many wealthy.
True, Mike.
No, it's not. There's not that many wealthy pensioners. There's an awful lot of pensioners who don't receive pension credit, who are sort of literally living from hand to mouth. But they've also paid into the system for many, many years. Many of them worked all their lives, and they're not well off. They simply have a pension which they always thought that they would get. And they now have a payment that they have always had being taken away from them. And so, I think it's legitimate to say they're taking money away from people who are not well off because they don't qualify for pension credit. I mean, you have to be pretty much on the breadline to get pension credit. And a lot of people don't qualify for it simply because they've got something like £12,000 that they can use to live on over the course of a year. So the system isn't great.
Well, it's worth taking a step back and remembering that pensioners did not always get this payment. It was introduced by Labour about 20 years ago when the level of the state pension was much lower. Now, 20 years later, the state pension level is much higher. So it's clearly...
It's still pretty awful, though, isn't it? I mean, do you know what it is?
It's about £12,000 a year, I think. Must be 11.
Yeah, so you're not exactly living high on the hog. You're not going to the Ivy every week, are you?
No, but it's worth remembering...
It's £1,000 a month.
The people who will lose the winter fuel allowance have private pensions on top of the state pension.
Some of them might have, yeah.
The people who will continue to receive it are the people who only receive the state pension, who are on pension credit. That's the dividing line that's being drawn. But I'm not here to argue...
But it's the vast bulk of people, 8.5 million people supposedly who were getting it. Now, 7.5 million of those people are not going to get it anymore.
Well, that's a political risk that this government is willing to take. But I'm not here to argue whether that's the right or wrong thing to do. I think the interesting thing is that the government is willing to take on the powerful lobby that is the pensioner vote. Now, that may well backfire on them. It's clearly a political gamble to take money away from people. There's nothing more unpopular than that.
No.
But whether the Labour government will pay a price for it is open to question, because these are not their voters, and that is the calculation they are taking.
And that's why I think people are quite rightly branding them quite cruel, because they're doing it very, very deliberately for ideological reasons. And as you say, they think they can get away with it because they think none of these people vote Labour anyway. But what I'm saying is that, it hasn't worked well for them, because they've gone from being quite a popular government that was elected, albeit not by a huge majority of actual people voting, but they were quite popular at the time they got in. They're now a lot less popular, because the polls are showing that Starmer's gone from an approval rating of 16 down to pretty much 0.
Well, I've seen different figures for his personal ratings over the last few weeks. I'd be very, very surprised if they've been affected by any decisions made concerning pensioner benefits, which I doubt that information has really sunk in.
Well, you should have been listening to my show last week, mate.
Change has not yet been made.
Rob, you should have been listening to my show last week when we were getting call after call after call from people who were calling the government disgusting, disgraceful, ghastly, horrible. You know, that's the way people feel about it.
If Keir Starmer is now significantly less popular than on election day, I think that's an if. But if it is the case...
Well, no, there's a YouGov poll that says he went from 16-point approval rating down to 3, and that was before the riots.
I've seen different polls, but I think...
Which polls have you seen?
The reason...
Which polls? Sorry, Rob. No, I'm not going to let you get away with it. What polls have you seen?
I'm not here to let me get away with anything or not. I'm here to try to...
Well, you can't just say, I've seen different polls. Yeah, but you can't just say, I've seen different polls. Keir Starmer right now is a very unpopular Prime Minister. Do you disagree with that?
Let's accept the premise of what you're saying. He's significantly less popular than election day. OK, I accept that. If that is the case, that's almost certainly because there have been riots going on.
No,
it's not.
This was before. This was because of the reason I'm talking about the pension story is I'm trying to get away from the riots. We can talk about the riots if you want. That's also made him quite unpopular. But the point is that before that even happened, he was pretty unpopular because of the policies that the Labour Party announced in the first 2 weeks of their government.
OK, well, I try and make it a guiding rule of mine. I don't spend my whole life talking about polls, in which I'm very little interested. I think the interesting thing that's taken place in the 35 days since Keir Starmer became leader is that we've had riots on the streets. I mean, that is him going through the fire. That is a huge test of his premiership in a way that the argument about pensioner benefits is very much small feed in comparison. Now, I think the riots that have gone on could definitely deal a significant blow to the strength of his leadership and the public's impression of him. And I think the jury's still out on that. I think it depends, doesn't it, on what happens next. If there are more riots this weekend, people will point the finger at the Prime Minister and say, hey, your number one job is to keep us...
No, listen, I think people will view his swift justice as quite a good thing, and I think we've got a clip, actually, of that, which we'll play you in a second. But what I think people are also unhappy about is the way that he has reacted to the riots and some of the things that he has said, which have been quite divisive. Particularly the first 2 statements that he made at the beginning or the middle of last week, I should say, where he basically went on and on about how he wanted to protect Muslim communities, but wouldn't recognise that actually there were other problems going on.
Well, I think what Keir Starmer did, he was very, very forthright in blaming what he calls the far right for the riots. Now, again, I think there is a political risk in doing that. It was interesting that he chose to be so outspoken. I suspect some previous Labour Prime Ministers would not have done so. But I think it's interesting that the public seems overwhelmingly on side with Keir Starmer, don't they? The public overwhelmingly seems to...
No, I wouldn't say that.
...far right for the riots. And I think when we saw the people of Britain come out in huge numbers this week across the country...
Yeah, but they weren't the people of Britain.
No, but Rob, they weren't. Not going to let the far right commit violence in their...
But Rob,
I think that was a huge boost to the Prime Minister.
No, they weren't.
They were on the same page
Rob,
as the Prime Minister.
Listen to me. They were not the people of Britain. They were chanting free Palestine, right? They had the Labour count. Yes, they were.
That's just not true.
You're telling me... All right, can we get the clip, please? Let's play Rob the clip.
That's not true. The overwhelming...
Right. Well, I'm going to play you... I'm going to play you... Sorry, Rob. I'm going to play you a clip from Walthamstow, right? This is the same rally that you say were the people of Britain. Check this out. That was 2 nights ago in Walthamstow. Are you telling me that didn't happen?
Well, I don't know what you're telling me happened. I saw one Palestinian flag.
They were just chanting free Palestine. Have you gone deaf or something?
What are you trying to prove here?
Well, I'm telling you that these are not the people of Britain. That was the far left who came out to supposedly counter the far right. And if you're going to talk about...
You're telling me people who oppose what Israel is doing in Gaza are necessarily not the people of Britain. Is that what you're saying?
I'm saying that they are representative of a group of people in Britain in the same way that the far right are representative of a group of people in Britain. And if you can't see that, then you're not a well-balanced journalist. I'm sorry. You know, the bottom line for me is that at the end of the day, Keir Starmer has not done well in his first month of government, and that is absolutely and utterly proven by the statistics that have happened. People are not happy with him. people are more and more disenchanted with Labour's policies, and it's going to be very difficult for him.
Okay,
government is hard.
I thought you invited me on here today to give my analysis of Keir Starmer's 35 days. You may hate my analysis. You may
I don't hate anything. I'm just pointing out. You've said no. Hang on, Rob. You've said two things.
Come on here and agree with you.
I don't know. I'm not asking you to agree with me, but you can't come on here and make statements which aren't true.
I think you
just told me. Hang on. You just told me.
Constantly talking over me and not listening to the points that I am making.
No, because I'm pointing out. You just said to me that didn't happen, right?
No, I didn't.
Yes, you did. We can play it back. We can play it back to you, Rob. We can play it back to you.
There were tens of thousands of people on the streets of Britain this week. They were not all chanting Free Palestine. They were
almost every demonstration. Well, almost every demonstration that was held.
And if you can't see that, you are not a well-balanced journalist.
Yeah, I'm a very well-balanced journalist. I've been doing a lot bloody longer than you have. And I'll tell you one thing, all right?
You've been doing very badly.
No, I haven't actually. I've been doing it a lot better than you. The point is that you said that didn't happen. You denied that people were chanting Free Palestine.
No,
when I showed it to you,
it was one person. Yes. Now you're lying about what I said.
You're calling me a liar.
One person.
You know, I tell you what. You know what, Rob? You can just get rid of him. Just cut him off because he's now talking absolute and utter nonsense. I don't know what's wrong with him. Obviously, he got out of bed on the wrong side. What a complete and utter plank. Absolute moron. I'm not having him back on the show. You're now banned, Merrick. There's another bloke called Merrick who's the Elephant Man. We're not having him on either. This is Talk.